Think about a future where you have kids who've been through the process of learning to be resilient so that when the time comes, they are socially responsible by saying, I respect what you have to say and here's what I have to say. Let's see where we can find a way to work that out. I think we were very clear. We decided that the mentorship program will cover three aspects for a student. One is to allow him to set achievable academic goals and show the student how he can achieve it. Two is to give him a platform to emote himself, which could be absolutely anything besides not having to speak to your parents, which is something that a lot of students have a little difficulty with. And three is to give him, make him very comfortable with real life scenarios, which is you're in a very closed environment right now. School's going to give you everything that you're looking for, and you throw a tantrum, you receive it, maybe you earn it along the way, and so on. But real life scenarios, so that when you're out there working for yourself and you're building your own career in your life, you're not new to most of what you're going to come across. So we wanted to rebuild that or reconstruct it here, so that you're far more confident out there once you stepped out of your comfort zone, which is your school right now.
I don't feel like my parents are approachable. It's obviously going to change later, but right now my parents aren't my friends, they're my parents. So I'm not going to approach them with little things in my personal life. I'm going to be talking to them about like more formal things and like typical dinner conversation. If I had like a issue at school or an issue with a friend, my parents aren't someone I'm going to go and turn to. They'll probably be the last people that I'll tell. But the mentor's kind of like the in-between your friends and your parents. It's the little center point that you need.
Me being me, I procrastinate quite a lot and my grades aren't that great. So with Ashira ma'am helping me, I think I've seen a quite significant improvement. For somewhere in the 70s, I have risen up to the 80s, which is good. And ma'am has helped me set up a timetable and stuff at home, so things are looking good. And it's not always academics. She set a few other goals for me, like I will help volunteer at 4 other events. So, and yeah, I will be doing everything that she requires me to do.
We've had mixed responses. We've had kids who've just snapped right at it. They've blended right in. They know exactly what they're doing. They tail their mentors on a daily basis with questions like, let's sit and do this now, I have some time. While we also have students that are very laid back. But something that I've seen as a pattern is that the student wants the mentor's attention. They want them to take that time out and say, I'm interested in you. Tell me your stories, I'm waiting to listen. And some kids may not come up directly and tell you to do that, and some kids might demand for it. But I suppose that's where it becomes this little game that you play with your mentor and your mentee, where you're starting to understand each other and you're starting to tell each other little tidbits about how each other work. And then you start working around that, and that as a whole over a period of a year or 2 years becomes your storybook. It just becomes chapters that you've gone through, and now you can rely upon the old ones to make new ones. And then it sort of unfolds itself throughout that process.
As mentors, not as teachers, you break the barriers. Kids can approach you anytime. They know you are not being judged. They know that you don't have any preconceived notions. They know you have not framed them in a typical way. That's what builds up the comfort zone, and that's what actually brings a difference between kids approaching their parents and kids approaching a mentor. They don't see you as anybody. They just see you as mentors. They just see you as somebody who is going to guide them and not talk about it anywhere.
Mentoring sessions are actually like a wave of different emotions. It starts with like just extremely casual and calm conversation, but then when she has to ask us certain questions and she has to ensure that she gets whatever work she's planned done in the session, it starts becoming more serious, and it becomes really confusing for me, because sometimes when I talk to my mentor and the other mentees, and I say something and I have to hear different people's opinions for the first time, because usually I don't ask for other people's opinions. But when I do, it's kind of confusing because it's hard to take in what other people have to say. But it's also really nice to hear, because sometimes you need to hear other things that you didn't know you needed.
So there is no strategy. You need to understand, because every child's different, understanding of mentorship is different. Like I have a child who never believed in a program called mentorship. He's very lazy, very, very lazy. He never came. As far as his goal setting document is concerned, I had to really ask not less than 10 times. But there was a day when we sat and I asked about his aspirations, his weaknesses, his strengths. And he couldn't figure out his strengths, he couldn't figure out his weaknesses, he couldn't figure out what he wants to achieve in life. But when he saw the other guys, two other guys sitting with me and coming up with their hopes, with their strengths and with their weaknesses, is when he realized, why don't I have all these things? How can I be so satisfied with life?
I think the mentorship program, my mentor, my mentees, my best friend, my parents, everybody here is actually trying to help me make a better me, right? Yeah.
Emotionally, it kind of helps me become emotionally stronger, because when I had no mentor with me or no one with me, I used to be very unstable. I didn't know where to go. I used to be really frustrated sometimes, like, oh my god, what do I do? What if I don't get into any college? But here, like when I have Seema, she's like, no, everything is fine, it's alright. You can do these kind of preparations to get into this kind of college. You will go somewhere. So you know, like you are gonna reach somewhere at the end of all this, so you won't be lost.
Being a teacher and a mentor can be a deadly concoction. The child knows he doesn't have an escape route. He knows that, okay, fine, there is a discipline, somebody who's going to look up to the discipline part, and there is somebody who you can emotionally fall back on, who you can rely on, you can trust on. So I have gained an experience whereby I can approach the kids and they know that they can trust me. They cannot get away with anything, they can trust me.
I think the toughest part is to know where to rein in yourself. Most of the mentors here are also parents. So to be able to segregate in your mind what you would tell your son or daughter versus what is appropriate to advise your mentee. I think that's the biggest challenge, to get that balance, to say, okay, this I can tell my son and daughter, this I may be able to advise my mentee on, right? So to get that balance of not overdoing it and probably having the courage to also step up when it's needed, because the other apprehension, I wouldn't really call it the fear, is to be able to say, okay, can I say this to a student? Because a student also knows me as a teacher, right? I think that would be one of the challenges.
My biggest takeaway as a mentor is that I thought I was a good mentor until now, until I met my mentees. And they've really toppled it over for me. And very specifically, one of my mentees, I'm actually to be very honest, I'm taking away from the program more than my mentee. Because I'm learning things from him I couldn't dream of thinking myself. So I wouldn't think of those things by myself. I would have to have that outside source, and that outside source in this case is my mentee, who's a very young mind, and that young mind's been exposed to this world as it is. Whereas if you compare my mind to that, I have a lot of baggage because I come from a longer time, and so that's all accumulated. And no matter what you do, you can put your mind through a long list of processes that say that you can let go, you can change the way you think, and so on and so forth. But here's a mind that's brand new, and this is the first time he's been put into these situations, and the way he responds to it gives me goosebumps that you can actually think that way. So if you look at it in some way, the mentor often becomes the mentee, and these are things that are underlying things that happen on the side, where the mentee is expressing himself, but the mentor really is taking a lot from the program. What the mentorship program really hopes to achieve eventually, which is in the long run, 5-10 years from now, when you have at least 6 or 7 batches that have graduated after having gone through the program, is that they are confident people to maintain healthy relationships with whoever they're dealing with. Whether it's at your work, at a space you're just hanging out, it's about that mutual respect that you have with somebody, so that you can retain those 20, 30 or 40 relationships that you've had along your life, rather than end up having just 1 or 2 who you confide in, and it becomes this closed space where you believe that the world doesn't understand me, and that there are only these 2 or 3 people that know what I'm about, and then you narrow yourself down to that process. And in some ways that really limits you, because you're stopping yourself from understanding that you may be unique, but there are also other people that you can learn from, which are in your immediate vicinity.